Welcome. Hi, I'm Ida Reis, and I'm a certified divorce lending professional. And this interview is part of the Divorce Literacy Series from the Divorce Lending Association. And we're highlighting local family law professionals to provide information for families that are going through divorce or related life transitions. And we're hoping to provide information that will help them in the process. And today I have with me, I'm so excited to have with me, Miriam Sievers. Miriam, would you kindly introduce yourself and tell us about what you do?
Sure, Ida. First of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. I am a family law attorney based out of Howard County, although I practice all over the state. And I do everything from litigated divorces and custody cases. I'm collaboratively trained. I'm trained as a best interest attorney. So, when I can settle cases, that's always the goal in family law. And as your viewers may already know, the vast majority of family law cases do settle out of court, even if they were initiated in court. And I also have a specialty in my practice where I focus on LGBT legal issues and family formation. So that's, sort of making sure that both parents in a family have secured equal parentage rights, both within the state of Maryland, and then so that they have portability with those rights no matter where they go. And then in addition to that, I've dealt with some I have an appellate practice, and I've dealt with some LGBT legal issues on appeal that have set precedent in Maryland.
That's exciting. Can you give us a summary of one of those?
Sure. So I had a case, the case is Sherman versus Reis. It is a reported case from what is now the Maryland Court of Appeals, which is our intermediate appellate court level. So the first sort of level of appellate courts that you get to. And it's a case that sets the precedent in Maryland that parties who are members of a civil union that was otherwise functionally equivalent to marriage under the statute at the time, which the Vermont Civil Union statute was. It created all of the rights incident to marriage and called the parties spouses, and had a very comprehensive list of what their benefits were as part of their civil union. We don't have civil unions anymore because now we have marriage equality. But at any rate, the case set the precedent in Maryland that those civil unions will be recognized for purposes of divorce in Maryland under what we call the doctrine of comity, which just means that we in Maryland recognize and respect laws in other states. So we don't have a civil union statute in Maryland. We never had civil unions in Maryland, but we can apply the civil union statute in Vermont, which allowed its citizens to, or its residents to divorce and all of those things that come with divorce, alimony, marital property, those kinds of things. We can do that in Maryland now. So that was the appellate case.
Well, congratulations. That sounds like quite an achievement.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So if you want to give some heads up sort of, I don't know if I want to say advice, but just something to tell people who are starting down that road that you think would be helpful to them.
Oh my goodness. Well, I think having a lawyer who you trust is probably the most important thing. I think that trust is really the foundational element in an attorney-client relationship. And it's really difficult in a family law case to, embark through this very contentious, or even when it's not contentious, this very emotional process and not have, at your side, someone whose advice you really value. The whole point of paying a lawyer is because you want our advice and our experience. And I can't tell you the number of times when people come and they say, oh, well, my sister said this, or my neighbor got this. And those facts are not applicable necessarily in their case. And so having an attorney who you say, I'm going to listen to what they say and I'm going to steer the ship, but my lawyer's there to help guide me, is really, really important. So if you're just at the beginning of the process, have patience and get good counsel.
Okay. Awesome. And I was also asking you, like, as far as the types of process that you mostly do, can you tell us about that?
Of course. So there's sort of a spectrum of how cases can resolve in Maryland, especially if we're talking about a divorce. Ultimately, that's something that needs to be ratified by a court. So even if you have sort of worked things out outside of the court process, you will ultimately need to have, an uncontested hearing. So at the end of the day, the court will govern all of those things and also has jurisdiction over children. But that doesn't mean that everything has to go through a court process. So you can sort of sit down at the kitchen table with your spouse or the other parent, depending on the circumstances, and try to identify what things you agree on, what the issues are. It's funny when I think about my memorable cases, unfortunately, the ones that are not memorable are the vast majority of them where, we've sort of come together and people have either really worked out the majority of the issues and they say, look, the only thing we really disagree on is not even custody writ large, but the actual schedule, right? Like which overnights are going to be whose. And so that's something that we then try and work out. So we can kind of jump in at any point in the process. We can jump in when people are just sort of at the beginning and are trying to understand what the lay of the land is, and they just want to understand their rights. We can jump in when the other side has retained an attorney and that first letter is received and it, kind of makes someone go, oh my goodness, what am I doing? I need to, call a lawyer. And so we're happy to then sort of review and talk to people about sort of what's going on in their case, what the facts are, and everything in between. So, we love it when we're able to settle cases because parties are always going to be able to make a better determination for themselves and their families than, rolling the dice on what someone with it. And with all due respect to the bench, but our jurists will tell you as well, they only get to meet you for a day, maybe 2 or 3 days. They don't know your family, right? So that's how most cases end up settling.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, the children, I would imagine that's a very challenging issue to get that so that both parties agree to take care of the children in a way that benefits the children.
Yes.
Yeah. So I want to thank you. I wanted to see if you had any final thoughts for our listeners. And go ahead. Do you have any final thoughts?
I think I said this at the beginning, but it's a long road. And so I think having patience and realizing that even if your case is going to trial, the vast majority of what's going to make or break your case is going to be what happens outside of court. So, your behavior, your decorum, the choices you make, taking the high road, and knowing that it's going to be a while.
That's great. That's great. Well, I want to thank you so much for your valuable time today. What great information you're providing our audience. And can you give us your website so we can get all your contact information to anyone who's watching?
Yes, if you just go to Amos Perrick Law, that's AMOS, and I think it's actually aplaw.com is the website. But if you Google Amos Perrick, it should pop up for you, but aplawmd.com.
Thank you. Appreciate it again. Bye.
Thanks, Ida.